Hello YouTube, my name is The Legend of DS, and I'm here to talk about two things. Nintendo's E3 digital event of 2015, obviously, and the Nintendo NX. So I'm gonna start with the first topic, will be Nintendo's E3. Um, it was a rather disappointing E3, especially considering the Nintendo Direct on in April, the Nintendo World Championships, and the Nintendo Direct for Super Smash Bros. That was right before E3. It's sad. It was a poor showing by Nintendo. It was very predictable. I even heard people say it was a waste of time. I will not agree with that. I'm disappointed because there were no new big games shown. Everything that we saw was either predictable, we saw it coming, or not what people wanted. Hint, hint, Metroid Prime. Uh, Federation Force, which not was not the Metroid game or the Metroid Prime game that people wanted. People wanted Metroid Prime 4 for the Wii U, which is not happening. They are getting Metroid Prime Federation Force to the 3DS. Uh, it was disappointing, but I have to say, when you think about it, it was much better to have the E3 that they had than the E3 that many people that they themselves have had and many people have had. That is announcing games and not the games not coming out for years. Watch Dogs was announced either 2011 or 2012. It only came out in 2014, almost ready for its third or fourth E3. No Man's Sky, for example, has been announced since 2012, hasn't come out yet. Xenoblade Chronicles and Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem were both announced in 2013. One is out in Japan, the other is coming out in Japan later in the year, and Xenoblade almost was a 2015 release for the West. Uh, the Division was announced at the same time as Watch Dogs, or the year after Watch Dogs, if Watch Dogs was in fact 2012, which I think it wasn't, or might have been 2012. I because I remember hearing people say like this, is this the part of the Wii U? If it is there, I really don't remember. Um, and that's it. That's basically what. Not that's it. Wow, that was a poor transition. Uh, the Division. I was talking about the Division. That's what I was going. While I was sidetracked. The Division was either announced 2013, 12 or 2013 or something like that. Either or. And we're in 2015. It hasn't been released. I don't think it has a release date as of yet. And then there's obviously two other games announced in 2013. There are Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 since 2013 that were confirmed to be in production. We are July, right now it's July 2015. No release, and I believe no release date. Last month at E3, Sony announced something that shouldn't be at the Sony press conference, I feel like, since Square was having their own press conference, and that was Final Fantasy VII being announced, a game that we don't know when it's coming. Another thing that I was disappointed with Nintendo's E3, but I was kind of angry at the way that Sony handled Shenmue 3. Why was Shenmue 3 at Sony's press conference if it was a Kickstarter? Nothing against being a Kickstarter. It would have made just the same amount of money if it wasn't at the Sony press event. I just want to know why was it necessary for it to be at the press event of Sony. It's not like Sony cannot pay for the game. Obviously, it didn't have that much of a budget. I think it was like they were asking for what, 2 million? I mean, any of the big three could have given them 3 million. Heck, I think even Sega would have given them the 2 million if that was the case. But you know, that's in the past. I just feel like it was a poor showing. It's a poor showing when you show a Kickstarter in your press event. I just feel like it's not fair, let's put it that way, for the fans. Why? Why are you showing something that you could have easily paid for, but you're making the fans uh, pay for the game that you could have paid for very, very easily? Uh, so that's what I think about E3. Nintendo was disappointing, uh, but I'm not one of those people that are like gonna be super angry because it's not the Metroid Prime that we wanted. It's a kind of a spin-off, like the other Metroid Prime on the DS, uh, or they or the people that are like, I'm disappointed because Star Fox looks like a GameCube game, and it's like, well, people were complaining about Super Mario 3D World, and that game turned out to be looking pretty good. Same thing with Mario Kart. So what's it to say that in comes in we arrive in October and in comes Star Fox Zero new trailer. Boom, there you go. Looks amazing. Everybody loses their minds and people start screaming about their genitals. And well, it looks amazing now, and your complaints from 6 months ago, not really 6 months ago, it's for 3-4 months ago, are completely moot. And regarding opinions that can be completely moot, let's go talk about the Nintendo NX. Now, the NX, the only thing we know about the NX is that it's going to be a dedicated gaming system with a brand new concept, quote unquote, from Nintendo. What's the new concept? No one knows, only Nintendo knows, and third parties now, because Nintendo has shown the thing, showed the NX to third parties. Pardon, if Game Informer is to be believed. Now, before I talk about more about NX and what the rumors are and what the things have been talked about, let's get some misconceptions out of the way. I've seen some people think that NX is related to the quality of life system that Nintendo is working on. First and foremost, NX, quality of life, are not the same thing, are completely separated. One is for health and fitness, the other one is for gaming. They are separate. Sure, Nintendo has said that they were going to use what they're going to utilize their the learns they think in the things they learn in video games to utilize them in the quality of life project, but they are not the same thing. They're going to be separate. There'll be tiny links to each other, maybe like stuff like Wii Fit and Wii Sports might be connecting the two, making the bridge between gaming and quality of life, but they are separate divisions, let's put it that way. Another thing, NX is not gonna be something involving mobile games. Sure, the NX most likely will have the mobile games that Nintendo will release for iPhone, tablets, and stuff like that, and smartphones and Androids and stuff on the NX. Heck, they might even come to the 3DS and Wii U. We don't know. So that's another point to remember. I even saw some ridiculous article. I think it was like in Forbes or Times or whatever it was. It stuck with me off, or maybe it was Kotaku, and I'm just trying to erase the fact that Kotaku exists, or Polygon or something like that. There, the guy just made an article saying that it would be NX, and to me that the thing that was like, I want to go to this person, slap them in the face and teach them how to read, because the guy was obviously, if he wrote for a big news site, he knows how to speak English, he knows how to read English, and most probably if it is Times or Forbes, probably is American, and I'm Portuguese and I would want to meet them. uh, English is my like second or third language. I learned technically Spanish before I learned English, but I speak English better than I speak Spanish. That's not the point. I want to go there to him, show him, first slap him, and then show him what Nintendo has said about NX. Nintendo has said NX is going to be, and I will say this, I've said this in this video and I'll say it again, a dedicating gaming system, not peripheral. Like this guy was saying that NX, Nintendo NX, is gonna be the controller we all are waiting for iPhones and tablets. I'm like, did you read what they say? That's what I was saying. I want to go to him, slap him in the face, and show him the quotes from in English from the what Iwata and Nintendo have said. NX is a new dedicated gaming system, not the peripheral for your cell phone. I read that and I was stupefied. I'm like, there are people out there that actually believe that this is a thing. People actually believe that this is a thing. So, again, what the NX is not a peripheral for your cell phone, and it's not the quality of life project that Nintendo is working on. NX is a dedicated gaming system. Now, there's 3 routes that Nintendo could take. Actually, 4 routes. and I'm a much bigger fan of the fourth route. It's handheld, home console, the Fusion, the stupidest idea, the Fusion hybrid, or my fourth, the thing I put in fourth is a handheld first, home console later, two different systems with the same OS, and the NX being the OS of both systems. Now let's start with the most likely one of the four, that is NX is a handheld. Why? Well, let's go with the rumors. First rumor was that the NX was going to have, and it was going to be Android based. That Nintendo has come out and said that's a complete lie. That's why I don't believe the next rumor. From Unseen64, that says that he's been talking to the right people, and to me that's like, okay, you guys have proven that you guys are trustworthy, but never, if I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, never have they said, shown us things from ongoing projects. They've always been projects that were cancelled or there are no more. As far as I can tell, they have never said anything about a project that was still ongoing by the time they talk about it. You can say, oh, talking to the right people, but remember, Nikkei, a very respectable business journal in Japan, that I kind of think like also like said that Nintendo was gonna do mobile, and it ended up being true. I think that it was them. I forget, but I know that they did like articles regarding that. And if I'm not mistaken, they are a very reputable journal, business journal in Japan. I hear so much about them. I think they have to be. Said that we're going to be Android based, and they had sources coming from Nintendo that were Android, that the console was going to be Android based. So this might not be true. It's like, oh, we're talking to the right people, but are you actually? You don't know. That NX was not going to be as powerful as the PS4. Now, here's the two sides of this. It's either the handheld, like I think it is, or it could be, and by the way, the first two things being a handheld or a home console do not affect the fact that it could be the fourth thing, but I'm saying that the next dedicated gaming system could be and most likely will be a handheld. It's even if it's a handheld, it makes sense for not to be more as powerful as the PS4. It will probably be as powerful as the Vita or the Wii U if it is a handheld. But if it is a home console, that still doesn't mean jack shit. Like I've seen some people overreacting. It's gonna be weaker. It's gonna be Nintendo doesn't learn from their mistakes and it's stupid. Let me remind you something. Xbox One is weaker than the PS4. It's slightly weaker than the PS4. The difference is almost none, but it's still weaker. Heck, if the difference in power between, let's say that the PS4 is a 10 out of 10 and the Wii U is a 9, and the Wii U and the NX in terms of power, if it's a handheld, if it's a console, it's 9.99. It's still weaker. It's not competing with power, technically speaking, but the difference is so little that nobody's gonna notice. Heck, even the 9.2 would not be that big of a difference when it came to games. And besides, I've said this I've said this in some comments, in some videos, power doesn't matter. The reason why the Wii U is not getting games from third parties, it's not because it's weaker than the PS4 and Xbox One. If that was the case, why is the PS3 and Xbox 360 still getting games even though they're weaker than the Wii U? The reason is simple, very, very simple, is the architecture. Third parties know how to work a game onto the PS3 and Xbox 360. They have been doing it for years. Sure, they only learned to make games for the PS3 after Sony paid them because the PS4 was the Wii U of its time. Sure, it ended up making some profit and it ended up selling 80 million, but comparatively, I think that Xbox 360 made more money and the Wii definitely made more money than that, even with a difference of only 20 million right now. The PS3 killed all the money, all the profits made by the PS1 and PS2 and probably the PSP. Not that it matters now, but the PS3 was a huge miss by Sony, like the Wii U was by Nintendo. The companies got arrogant, thought they could do anything, and I think, I'm going to be honest, I think PS5, if there is a PS5, is going to be the same thing as the PS3 and the Wii U. Also, people, and I said it again, it's not the matter of power, it's architecture. Since third parties know how to work with x86, which is the PS4 and Xbox One, they can easily port games from one to the other, even if one is the console that they're major they're focusing on, or even PC. And knowing, because they've been working on this architecture for the past 7 to 8 years, they also know how to work, or almost 10 years of working with the the Xbox 360 turns 10 this year, and the Xbox and the PS3 and the Wii turn 10 next year. They know how to work with the architectures, so they don't care. The Wii U is PowerPC. It's a different architecture, so it's harder. They have to learn, and it's a little bit more costly, especially since they still have to learn. So third parties will not take the time and effort to make versions of the games as good as the others, with the same features as the others, and will not care by building a fan base on the system, since it's harder and more harder, more time consuming, and it's more costly. So if the NX is in fact just a Wii U 2.0, if it has x86 chipset instead of PowerPC, it will be doing better. It will automatically pretty much guarantee third-party support, because porting to x86, even if they have to downgrade the graphics and some areas of the games, it won't be as costly as it is to port over a game for the Wii U, since it's not as costly or as time consuming to optimize for the system, because Nintendo will obviously make slight adjustments to the chipset of the x86, like they do with the PowerPC and everything. That's why we don't know the real power of Wii U. They would obviously just port over the games, because it would be so much easier, and build the fan base inside of another fan base, and maybe even bring over their fan bases. So again, if the NX is weaker than the PS4, as long as x86, it should not be as much of a big problem as the Wii U was. But continuing on, if NX is less powerful than the PS4, it's still gonna be most likely a handheld. Why? Because of some quotes that Nintendo has said. First and foremost, they have said that Wii U and 3DS will be both, not just one, not but the two will be supported by them after the release of NX. Now, why would they do this? Remember, the Wii was not supported by Nintendo after the release of the Wii U. Same thing for the GameCube. The last GameCube game to be released by Nintendo, if I'm not mistaken, was Twilight Princess, which obviously came out after the Wii, but mainly because Nintendo and was a dual release. Now, things are different for the handhelds. The Game Boy Advance was supported after after the DS launched. If I'm not mistaken, Pokemon Emerald came out in 2005, and Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green came out in 2004. That, my friends, at least in the Americas and Europe, that was after the DS launched. After the 3DS launched in 2010, the DS still got Pokemon Black and White, and Black 2 and White 2. So that's a big thing. That was an entire Pokemon generation still in the DS lifetime, that could have easily been for the 3DS's launch. Another thing that makes the NX more likely to be released was the recent quote that people have been taken from Reggie, and saying that it confirms that it was, or that the NX is gonna be a home console. And I'm gonna read the quote. And this is from my Nintendo News, that says Reggie implies that NX is Nintendo's home console. But this is what Reggie says. First of all, we won't hear about NX until 2016. That's next year. That's not very far away as people make it out to be. This was a quote that Reggie gave on an interview. This is a quote from an interview to the Wall Street Journal. And Reggie says the following: from a Nintendo perspective, we clearly have strength here in the Americas, we have strength in Europe, and we have strength in Japan. That isn't necessarily true of our of some of our more direct competitors. We have also publicly that said publicly that we are working well, we already are hard at work on our next home console, and that's another element we'll be talking about much later. Now, people will take the part where he says we have publicly said that we're working hard on our next home console. They have, like they have about their next handheld. They always are working on their next system. This has been said multiple times by Nintendo that they're always working on their next system. So taking this doesn't mean nothing. Taking this line doesn't mean nothing because we know and they have said they're always working on their next system. And the quote that I take here that people are just forgetting is that he says that's another element we'll be talking about much later. When he says much later, to me it's not like NX, the NX is going to be talked in 1 year. In gaming, 1 year is not that long, you know? Like it's nothing. Even if NX is a home console and they only talk about it in E3 2016, then we won't receive the NX until 2017. And Reggie says right here that's another element. So what other elements do we have as things that we know? Mobile games, quality of life, and the NX. I will not say that's another element that we'll be talking about much later. I'll say that's a element. That's an element that we'll be talking about much later. So saying another, and I don't know if he was talking about quality of life and mobile games prior to this, because this is just a quote that's been circling around it that people have utilized to say that NX is the next home console. There's going by this, he says another. To me, I take this as another thing they're working on, aside from the three things we already know they're working on for the near future. And saying about talking about much later, to me, it just feels that they're going to talk about it after all of this, after all the NX and the games coming out, the NX, the mobile games, and the quality of life. Now, the NX could very well be a home. Before going to the home console, there's another thing that we must remember. Right now, today, the day of this recording, and probably the day of this upload, is July 9th, 2015. The day I'm recording this is July 9th, 2015, and it's 3:25 p.m. my time. So, when did the Wii U come out? The Wii U came out November 30th for me in my country, in Europe, in my continent, November 30th, 2012. If I'm not mistaken, it was November 30th. In Japan, it came December 6th. In the United States, November 18th, 2012. That's 2.5 years right now. The 3DS came out in, let me go check. I should have had this not painted, on my browser. 3DS. I should have already had this on Wikipedia, and I do apologize for it. Wikipedia, okay, opening it right now. And the 3DS launched the February 26th, 2011, March 27 in Japan, March 27, 2011 in the United States, March 25th, 2011 in Europe, and March 31st, 2011 in Australia. The 3DS XL came out later in 2012, mid 2012, July. It's almost been 3 years since the launch of the 3DS XL. Actually, it's about 2 weeks from now, the 28th of July in Japan. So the 3DS currently stands at 4 years in the market. The Wii U, 2.5. the 3DS by right now is at 52 million. The Wii U is roughly 10. It's close to 10. The 3DS will enter by E3 2016 will be a 5-year-old console on the market for 5 years. The Wii U will be at its third year. The 3DS, and let's compare to to the other handhelds by Nintendo. The Wii sold 100 million, and the DS sold over 150. I think it's 153, 54, could be wrong. That's a 50 million difference. The Game Boy Advance that didn't have as much of a life cycle as the 3DS. The 3DS right now is at 4. It's going on 5. It's going to 5 because we don't have more, not more. We don't know what's the next handheld, and I want to see how long was the life cycle for the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance went from 2000. Okay, the Game Boy Advance had 3 years on the market, basically. Basically, 3 years on the market. Technically speaking, 5. It sold 81 million. The GameCube sold 22. The difference between both is almost 60 million. The 3DS is right now sitting at 52 with almost 5 years on the market. The 3DS is losing in terms of sales to the Game Boy Advance. The successor to the Game Boy Advance was released in 2004. That was the DS. Again, GameCube sold more, not Game Boy Advance sold more than the GameCube. The 3DS, the DS sold more than the Wii. The 3DS is selling more than the Wii U. All three handhelds, the two handhelds, Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS, sold over 50 million more than their home console's counterpart, and they still were discontinued or still got their successor released prior to the home console successor. Both DS and GBA were supported after their successor was released. Both the DS and the GBA had, and I could be wrong, right now I'm seeing that the GBA had two revisions. Had the Game Boy, was the original Game Boy Advance, then the SP, then the Game Boy Micro. The DS, I believe, also had three: the DS, the DS, the DS Lite, and the DSi. The 3DS, apart from obviously the XL models that really don't count because it's just an increase in size of the screen, that's nothing, is at the 3DS, the new 3DS, which is basically the DS Lite, and the 2DS. Going by all three consoles, all of them have had the same um, track record, selling more than their home console counterpart, having the DS having three revisions, technically four if we count the DS version, the XL versions, but the DS also had that, and they were supported after their successor was released, the DS and the GBA. Only and Nintendo says that they will be supporting the 3DS and Wii U after NX. To me, that seals it. The 3DS, the NX is a handheld. Going by track record, it's fifth year on the market for the 3DS. It's going on 5 years almost. It hasn't reached the numbers of the not even the Nintendo DS, just the Game Boy Advance. And going by the previous handhelds, it's following the same track record. Now, let's go with the home console. I don't think this is it because Wii U, by the time NX is announced, will be 3 years and a half. It sure it would be selling less than the game that the GameCube and the N64 had by their time. But again, like I said on the previous thing of the handheld, there's so much more pointing towards it. And the Reggie quote of another element we'll talk about much later seals the deal for me. I don't think NX is going to be a home console. And I really don't know what to think or what to say about the home console. Now let's talk about Fusion. Fusion is a poor idea in my opinion because it would just cannibalize the sales of the other, one or the other. And there are games that simply, and this will go into the fourth thing. Again, I think it's a bad idea. I don't like it, mainly because the idea that has been floating around is that it's not a fusion like people say. It's just one system that all Nintendo games play. It's a handheld that you connect to your TV. Basically, it's the Vita TV, which hasn't sold that much. It hasn't. Sure, Nintendo handheld systems have all sold great, and they probably will sell again. But I really doubt that Nintendo's gonna go that route. And just because it doesn't feel like something Nintendo would say, especially because of going with the next thing. The next thing is that NX is a handheld, like I think, but it's a very specific handheld. The handheld will have its specific OS. Not a specific OS, an OS shared with the home console. So they can share a multitude of games. Going basically every game on both systems would on one system would be on the other. The NX would obviously be less powerful than the PS4, while the home console will be slightly more powerful than the PS4. The handheld version will be like the 3DS is, but smaller and more compressed, and they could do more with it. Like not more with it, but keep it more compact. A better way to fight back against um, the mobile game market. Because I mean, I'm looking right now. My cell phone is kind of an old cell phone, but right now cell phones are smaller than my are. Probably are a little bigger in terms of size, but in terms in they're smaller, more compact. Sure, they have bigger screens and all of that, but they're smaller and more compact. And my cell phone's already pretty tiny, not pretty. It's pretty small compared to the 3DS, and my cell phone is a pretty old one. Like the iPhone is really, really thin. It sure is kind of large, but it's really thin, and it doesn't. It fits in the pocket so much better. It's more people. It's easier to have it in your pocket than it is a 3DS. The 3DS, if I put it in my pocket, it just sticks out. Like I have something there. It's like it's pretty obvious, and I don't think it doesn't leave much room for other things. Obviously the handheld again would be smaller, more compact, maybe even be able to serve as a controller for the home console, but they would not share every game. And before I say that, I'm gonna talk about the home console version of the NX OS. Would be basically a PS4, maybe slightly more powerful than the PS4. Obviously, it has to utilize both versions have to utilize maybe not have to. They since it will be porting over to just the OS and then you optimize to either system. Sure, it's time consuming to port to optimize, but it's much better to optimize than to port everything and then to one specific system and taking out stuff. But I feel like x86 still needs to be the thing, and I still think power doesn't have anything to do with it. But it would be PS4 basically a little bit more powerful, x86. And here's the thing: people like to say that Nintendo needs to give up the gamepad. I am very much against that idea. I feel like what Nintendo needs to do is take what they did with the gamepad, which is great. People like to talk bad about it, but I cannot imagine myself playing The Legend of Zelda without it after playing Wind Waker HD, and Splatoon. I don't like third-person shooter games because I'm not that good at controlling where I'm aiming. And with Splatoon, I have no problem with it, none at all, basically. So I like that. So what I think they'll need to do, because people complain about the gamepad, is resize it, make it smaller, make it more compact, and just do that. Have it smaller, more compact, smaller screen, better screen at the same time, and the console be slightly more powerful. Now, I feel like there needs to be two versions of NX, of the home console version of NX. If it is, like I'm saying, on one OS, Universal OS, that is one that doesn't have um, backwards compatibility with both Wii U, 3DS, and the DS, and another one that has. This goes more for the home console than for the handheld. The handheld, I think that it should be backwards compatible with the 3DS and with the DS because it's cartridge based. And if the handheld stays cartridge based, like I think it is, it might not, but if it is like I think it is, then you should still be able to pick up Pokemon X, for example, and put it on NX. And then then for the home console again, one without it and one version more expensive, but with backwards compatibility with the Wii U and with the 3DS. How would they do it with the 3DS? Well, that's easy. Either have um, a slot for the cartridges in the gamepad, included in the gamepad, or have one just on the home console. That simple. Now, obviously, the reason why I think this is better is because there will be two different consoles than the Fusion, where it's just basically one. But have the games be made for both versions, basically every game for both versions, but then have version exclusives. Kind of have every game basically be Smash Brothers 4, where it's for both, but both version is different. Now, I'm not saying, and the next thing, I kind of contradict myself there. I said every game, but I'm not saying every game. It should be every game that they made for both should be both different versions, basically the same game with different versions. Like if you make Yoshi's Woolly World for the NX home console, it has better graphics and it has pick no not Yoshi's Woolly World because I haven't played Yoshi's Woolly World. I'm gonna take Super Mario 3D World. That's a better example. The second half of the game, after you beat the game and you have the post game levels, all the other worlds have different versions of it, like in the different worlds and different levels on each version. That's what I wanted to say. Jesus, it's not that hard. And different game modes for each version. But not every game should be on both. There are games that sell better on a specific console. For example, Zelda sells better on home console. So instead of having the Zelda team make two different Zelda games like they have been making for years, have them just focus on Zelda for the home console. Have Animal Crossing sells better on the handhelds, so leave Animal Crossing on the handhelds. And then have games that experiment on both, or that are split between the consoles, different things. Like I would love to have Pokemon on the home console, but I think it should stay on the handhelds, and it will because it's Game Freak's decisions, not Nintendo's. And have Xenoblade stay on the home consoles because it just doesn't fit as a handheld game. It just doesn't. And and then have franchises separate. Like Smash Bros should definitely stay on the home consoles. Nothing against handheld, but we Smash U it had to take some tools because it's missing some stuff and some characters maybe that maybe would have been in the game, like the Ice Climbers that were cut out mainly because the 3DS version just couldn't handle it. But then I have like Mario, 3D Mario stays on the home console, 2D Mario stays on the handhelds, so they can do both. And then have like games like Mario Maker where it's crossover, both versions. There's two versions of it's for both, and it's cross by and have Virtual Console be cross by and all that stuff. That's what I think. That's to me it's the best option. Have one OS, two completely different systems, majority of games being released for both, but being technically speaking both very different versions. If it is a platformer, have different versions of each of post game. Splatoon, I think it should stay home console. I don't know. I don't know how it would work on a handheld. The smallest screen, a game like Splatoon, I would much rather have it on the home console. Uh, and keep things separate. Like have different game. For example, if they are really making Diddy Kong Racing 2, have two different versions, one for the handheld, one for the home console, and have both being different, having different game modes, different story, maybe even different characters. I feel like Mario Kart should stay handheld, while the home console gets um, Nintendo Kart, for example. And I think that's about it for everything I have to say about NX. I feel like this is going on for like 40 minutes, if I'm correct. I really can't see the timer right now. If it is 40 minutes, holy crap, did I talk for a long time and I need to get something to drink because I can feel I felt my throat dry up for a little while. And I should have said this in the beginning. The reason why I didn't react to E3 was mainly because my PC broke on the day of E3. I didn't upload my reaction to the Smash Direct because of problems with the PC and my video editing software, mainly because of the PC. But still, and I'm making this video now because it took 2 weeks for the computer to be fixed and brought back to me, and then some family problems arrived, and I'm making this video now. I'm intending of doing more videos, and I'm gonna start like with characters I want to see in Smash through the Smash Ballot DLC, or things that I want uh, the gaming industry to do. And for example, remakes. I don't like remakes. I think they should be going on another direction. That's like Star Fox Zero, but I'll make a video about that. Um, so thank you. If you watched all of this, holy crap, do you have patience to hear me talk? And you probably skipped around, right? You should. And I'll see you guys in the next video.